Well, there you go. The SEC decided to file an appeal and you got smacked right back down to the lows. However, I'm going to show you a couple things that I've been looking at. One of them being, if you look at this as a range, which this point here, right? We have been basically going sideways, ranging from the top to the bottom. You see these little deviations in here, right? But all in all, we're going sideways. And we've had a low, right? We have a higher low, we have a higher low, and we still haven't broken the low, right? Despite all of that carnage, right? We still haven't broken the low. Now, we could still do that, but I'm going to show you a couple things that maybe we're a little bit too oversold. And for right now, we do look like we need a bounce. And let me show you why. So obviously, we're at the bottom of this channel, or this this box, right? So this is some strong support. I would imagine it's going to hold the price for a little while. And then we can reevaluate, just like how much it's on the top, right? So that's number one, obviously, is the channel. Number two, if you go down to the 2-hour chart and you turn on the TD sequential, which is an exhaustion indicator, right now we are on a 9 buy, and this 9 buy is an absolute perfected 9. And you can see the 9 on the 2-hour chart nearly called the top as we were coming back to the upside, right? TD sequential is an exhaustion indicator. You use it alongside Elliott wave. It can help tremendously. Now, this doesn't mean that the 9's gonna, reverse the price. It doesn't even necessarily mean that we can get a little bounce, but it's telling us, hey, we're getting a little bit exhausted here on the 2-hour chart. If you look at the RSI, we're definitely oversold in the red. We haven't been this oversold in the 2-hour chart since going back early September, right? And look where it was in early September. It was in the beginning, right? Usually when you have a new month, when the monthly candle closes and the new month candle opens, most of the time the candle has some selling pressure and it goes down and it retraces some of the previous monthly candle. So that could be another element to it as well. But we have not broken the low yet, right? We've taken out this liquidity to the upside. We've taken out this liquidity to the downside. So let's see what happens down here. I'm curious if we can hold this area. And if we can, then I'm looking for a retracement at least back to about 57 cents. Now, I'm going to talk about the appeal in just a second. And I'm going to tell you what my prediction is, what I think is going to happen. But before I do that, let's go to the 4-hour chart. Would you look at that? We also have a 4-hour 9 buy. So we have a 2-hour 9 buy and we have a 4-hour 9 buy. So that's just adding to the potential that, this could be, at least for now, a short-term bottom, or at least getting closer to it. It is a perfected 9. You can see how we drop in, right? We kind of bottleneck in here. Bottleneck, right? And then bam, crush the low, right? On a 9. So far, that 9 is a bullish hammer. If it closed to where it is now, we still have 2.5 hours, so we'll see how that plays out. But if we go, let's try the 6-hour chart. Okay, so we don't have anything on the 6-hour. We had a 9 here, but it wasn't a perfected 9, and it was in a sense, but it was dangling right here on support. Let's go to the 8-hour chart. Oh wow. So you got a 2-hour 9, you have a 4-hour 9, and you have an 8-hour 9 buy. So on 3 different time frames. So that is pretty impressive there. You could see the 9 called the top here, almost called the bottom here, It doesn't give you exact pinpoint accuracy. However, a lot of times it does. And, you know, I think at, where it's at right now, and people kind of throwing in the towel saying, yeah, we're going to have another 2 years of litigation. And I mean, there's just no reason to sit around and wait. I mean, yeah, that could all be valid, right? And that could be true. But it gets to a point where, from a technical perspective, you get too oversold and it just doesn't make sense anymore. Remember, I'm going to go back. I'm going to prove it to you right now. Watch this. You don't believe me? Watch this. Watch this right here. Okay. So I want to show you something. And this is proof. Right here is when the SEC came out and sued Ripple. Obviously, we had a massive big dump to the downside, right? And, everybody thought, okay, it was game over. That's it. Done deal. But then literally a couple weeks after that, we started trending up, right? So we had one wave, two, we came up in the third wave, then a fourth wave, then we went all the way up to a fifth wave. So basically, we went up approximately 250% higher than where the SEC pulled the trigger on Ripple. So that proves that just because you have a lot of bad news doesn't mean it can't be overcome, because at the end of the day, XRP is still not a security. XRP was victorious last year, last July. The judge came out, XRP is not a security. Boom, we have a massive win. Then the second part of the Ripple case ended with another big win. Yes, they had to pay a fine, but it was just a small fine. Now they're coming out and trying to appeal all of that. But here's the thing. I think only a piece of it, not the whole thing. But here's the thing. Ripple's already proved it once. They proved it twice. 3 strikes, you're out, right? Third time's a charm. Maybe that's what's going on here. Maybe we got 3 different slam dunks going on the SEC. Whatever they're doing, they're basically blowing themselves up, and they don't really have a choice at this moment. So here's what I'll say. Here's my prediction on what I think is going to happen, and I'm going to jump into the smaller time frames in a second here. By the way, let's see this trend line here. I think, look at that. We bounced, or we're right actually on the trend line. I'll be curious to see if we can hold it. Actually, no, it actually looks like, I'll try to get it as conservative as I can. Like we're basically teetering right on it. So, but anyways, I think this is what I believe is going to happen. I think this appeal is all BS. I think the corruption at the SEC is unprecedented, and I think a lot of things need to change. And it is my belief that Trump will win the election, and
on day one, I will fire Gary Gensler and appoint a new SEC chairman. On day one, I will fire Gary Gensler and appoint a new SEC chairman.
that is at a Bitcoin massive whatever rally they're having there, Bitcoin 2024 in Nashville. He said that, right? Even the Bitcoin maxis know how unprecedented the SEC's corruption is, right? So here's my thinking. The SEC filed the appeal. Why? Why would they do that knowing the election is going to come up? Because it doesn't matter. They already know they lost. They're trying to inflict as much damage as they can. They're trying to create this is basically personal, right? Between the SEC and Ripple, and what they had to go through, all of the terrible. They're acting terrible. I mean, not in good faith at all during the whole court process. So I think this appealing, they know it's not going to go anywhere. They know they're not going to win. This is just to, you know, just to cause more injury. But at the end of the day, Ripple says, look, no matter what you guys do, we're going to, however long it takes, we're going to fight the good fight. But here's the thing. Once Trump wins, which I believe is going to happen, I think, obviously, he just told you he's going to fire Gary Gensler. Once that happens, what do you think is going to happen to the appeal? Do you think the new chairman is going to be like, yeah, let's keep going with this appeal? No, I highly doubt that. So, in other words, Trump wins. He fires Gary Gensler. They throw the appeal right out the door, along with Gary Gensler and all the other idiots alongside him that are participating in this carnage. By the way, they're not doing it to protect investors. They're doing it because they're bought and paid for through the special interest, through the lobbyists, right? Who is the central banks. That's who it's all about, right? So this could be theater, right? It could be all a show. It could be maybe who knows what's going on behind the scenes when stuff's going like this. Obviously, there's insider trading. But is it making me sell my XRP? Am I saying, you know what? Yeah, we had a good fight, but I'm just going to sell my XRP now just because they appealed. So we did all of that work for nothing. All of those years fighting, right? They had 75,000 XRP holders on that petition, and John Deaton led the way in fighting the good fight. Now he's running for Senate, right? He's going to take Elizabeth Warren's seat, who is the anti-crypto queen, bought and paid for by yours truly, the central banks. So at the end of the day, this is a war. This is the greatest war, which is over the financial system, over our liberties, over our freedoms, right? So that's what it's really all about. And I think that comes to a head this November, which is less than, 35 days or so away? I mean, even Brad Garlinghouse says it certainly feels like there's something more, keyword more, behind this than what is readily apparent. The truth and the corruption always comes to light eventually. And that's exactly the truth. People are realizing just how crooked the system is, right? And who appointed Gary Gensler? Who appointed all the SEC bureaucrats that have no interest in protecting investors, but rather harming them through their puppet masters? So, anyways, Stuart Albarrati, the guy who led this fight, the chief legal officer, says it's disappointing, it's not surprising, it just prolongs what's already a complete embarrassment for the agency. The court has already rejected the SEC's suggestion that Ripple acted recklessly, and there were no allegations, fraud, and of course, there were no victims or losses, except, of course, in which the SEC inflicted, right? I mean, look how much market cap got wiped off of XRP in a matter of 24 hours, or I would say less than that. It's billions and billions of dollars, all because of them, and there was no reason to. You guys lost the case. It's over. It's done, right? So, and another judge, another court will see the same thing. But, anyways, I don't even think it's going to get that far. I think it's going to be dissolved at some point. So someone says, hopefully Trump wins, fires Gensler, and the appeal can be withdrawn. Fed Rispoli, this guy, he's a lawyer, litigator. He knows all about this case. He said the parties could agree to withdraw the appeal at any time. So they're probably doing it for whatever reason. But I think, obviously, again, the election's coming up. I think they're going to be forced to withdraw, especially if if Gary Gensler is gone. Someone says, please give an example of why the SEC would agree to withdraw their appeal. It just doesn't seem like that would be what's happening. He says, there is a mandatory mediation program in the appellate courts that encourages all parties to settle as early as possible. This is an extreme example, but if the Democrats were demolished, which they are, in the election, and 20% of the voters in the exit poll said it was because of the Ripple case, it's not, but if it was, that would be a reason for the SEC to fold real quick. But I think they already know they lost the election, so they don't really even care. So it's definitely going to be a fight, and to get this big dark cloud off of the Ripple case. But here's the thing: at the end of the day, this to me is a type of sell the news event, right? Because we had the dump yesterday, and I think the rumor spread, and then people anticipated, hey, are they going to do it by October 9th? They pulled the trigger. You had a massive slam back down. The charts are still incredibly bullish, in my opinion, right? Nothing has changed from the macro perspective. We're still in reaccumulation. I mean, we're still above the 50-cent level. Yes, we got knocked down pretty hard, but at the end of the day, it could have been a lot worse. So when the other side of the world wakes up, we'll see how that affects the price. But give it 48 hours, and I'm sure things are going to start to settle down. Remember, the SEC sued Ripple back in 2020, and then literally in December of 2020, and then that coming spring, it was already up 200-300% above, and with the where the price dumped from the news. So here we have the news. Let's count out a couple months and see where we're at then. It's not like people are going to forget all about it, but I think, right, the market goes by supply and demand. If there's enough demand for XRP to totally ignore the SEC, right? It's just kind of like C19, right? At first, everybody was listening and following orders about whatever, right, the mask or going outside. But then eventually, people got brave, and they're like, you know what? This thing is past us. We don't need to be hiding. We don't need a mask anymore, right? And then they kept pushing it, and nobody listened because it was kind of like they were numb to it, right? There was like, get over yourself. So that's kind of how I think this is going to play out as well, as far as people's interpretation of, the sentiment around this Ripple case, especially, once Bitcoin gets that fifth wave. We're still in that macro fourth wave correction. Obviously, it could get worse, and we could go down into reaccumulation, and I've talked about that in other videos. But looking at the 1 hour chart, it doesn't look finished to me. It looks like we probably have a little bit more downside to go. I would, like I said in the other video, I would expect some kind of divergence here. So for example, like maybe 1, 2, 3, and then we go up for a 4, and then worst case we come down for a 5, and the RSI comes up, but then it comes down and it makes bullish divergence, and we have a lower low in price but a higher low in the RSI. That's kind of what I would look for, right? And then from there I would look for a 5-wave move to the upside, and then a 3-wave pullback, and then that would be a good opportunity for me, not financial advice, I could be wrong, for me to take a stab at adding to the position. So, I mean, today there was blood in the streets. You couldn't go wrong with anything below 54 cents. I think is a killer deal, especially since the election is so close, right? But if Kamala wins, Senator Warren gets her way, right? The deep state Democrats, even Republicans, they'll say what they want just to get elected. That's why I think this is going to be a big showdown for the ages. But Let's look at Bitcoin here. I mean, let's look at Theta here. Look at Theta. Theta is on a 4-hour 9 buy. It looks pretty good, right? We had what seems to be like a 1 2 1 2 3 4 5 4 5. We had a 1 2 3 4 5. We had a 5-wave move, right? And if I pull on the retracement levels from this low here, actually, I'm going to do it from this low. Yeah, so we're right at that 618, and we're holding there. So we're on the 618. We had blood in the streets, basically. I mean, we had a pretty, pretty gnarly pullback. And we are also, and I'm just using Theta as an example, but so anyways, we'll see if we hold in here, but this drop, I'm not gonna lie, it looks pretty nasty. It's a pretty ugly drop. Obviously, it's looking like this drop here, which is still, in my opinion, we're still part in this larger bottoming process, right? The video I put out earlier, I'm thinking that we are in some type of potentially Wyckoff accumulation here, right? So we have a move like this, and we could wrap around here and go, or worst case, the schematic 2, where we have to break this low here and then come out and then play and then go. Either way, I think that's what's going on. So let's let this thing work out. I mean, it could take a month to do it. It could take a few weeks, but I mean, that's just the way it goes. I think it's actually a good thing on some sense because it offers more people more opportunity to load up for these prices. So what I want to see Bitcoin do is simply hold 57K. As long as we can hold that, then I think we're doing okay. So let's go back to XRP. So what else could be going on here? Well, like I said earlier, we could have somewhat of a ascending triangle, right? So, we have an A, a B, a C, a D, and maybe this is E, but it's awfully impulsive to be a wave E. So we're going to have to see buyers step up in order for that to play. But it's definitely there. It's definitely there. And we still, despite all of that, we still have a higher low. So still looking pretty decent so far. Another way we can look at it is we have a 3-wave move to the downside. We have a 1, 2, 3-wave move to the upside, and we're going to get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 waves to the downside. So this becomes an A or WXY. We'll just say A, B, C, right? It'll be a 3-wave move, something like that. Now it could get expanded. It could be a little bit further down. Hopefully not, but we'll see. So let me remove that. Okay, so then what we have would be a 1, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, a 1, a 2, and then we go up 1, and then we pull back A, B, C, 2, right? We hold support in here, boom, 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 go, right? Kind of like it's kind of a weird shaped Wyckoff pattern, actually. Something like that. So yeah, I really like that. I really like that idea, the 1 2 1 2 setup. Or this could be a flat, right? Which is what? We have 3 waves down, right? And then this whole thing is 3 waves up. So we have 1, 2, 3 down, 3 up, and now what are we getting? 5 down. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So what that is A, B, C. So you see the flat. That's the flat right there. Now I'm not saying it has to go this low. I mean, it could have already ended. So it could be a regular flat, it could be an expanded flat, it could be a running flat. But the way it is now, it would be a running flat. So those are some multiple ideas. Now, if we start breaking below, 46, 47 cents, then that's when the structure becomes very, it damages the structure a lot, especially from this move up. And I still like this three-wave pullback. I think this three-way pullback is still very bullish. I just think it's part of a bigger three-wave move that we're just not seeing at the moment. But if you look over here, you can see, whoops, one moment. Let me do that again. If you look over here, you can see all of that resistance right there, right? So boom, 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 we came down, we broke up, came back down, came back up, came back down, and now we're sort of bouncing along. If I take another one, we're sort of bouncing along here, back testing, retesting all of this support, right? So it was resistance, we broke it, and now we're trying to flip it to support. So I think obviously this is a very big key area, and I would have to go even like to the daily chart to fully grasp just how big this area is. I mean, this is an extremely significant area, because look, it goes all the way back to here, and to this one, and to this one, and to this one, and to this one, and all of this. I mean, this is a monster. This is like a major inflection point for XRP. Can we hold? This is like the pivot zone. So anything below that zone, bearish, and anything above it is bullish, right? Or at least leaning bullish. So definitely very much a key area. And a lot of investors look at that as accumulation, right? So that's basically like this zone here, right? Especially this upwards trend line as accumulation. Speaking of this trend line, if I kind of bring it out a little bit, you can kind of see, right, as long as we're holding above that as well, that's another major thing. Let me just pull that along here. So yeah, we definitely have some wiggle room to work with as far as the price of XRP. But in the short term, we really would like to see a bounce come out of here. So let's look at the 15-minute just for fun. So there's a lot of different, when the smaller the time frame, the more possibilities. So I see a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That could be an A. I see a three-wave move here. That could be a B. And then I see a 1, 2, 3. Maybe we're getting 4, and then we get 5. That could be a C. So A, B, C. 5, 3, 5. That's an ABC. So I'm curious, once this C leg, this potential C leg is finished, how will we react after that? So that's what I'm looking for. Let's take a look at a couple different things here, like Matic. I mean, looks oversold. Right back down at support. Had a big drop. I mean, I think this is DCA levels. Honestly, I think this is a DCA type of level here. You kind of got a little bit of an impulse, kind of like flagging out a little bit. Maybe we get a larger fourth wave and then come down and get the fifth wave and then get divergence between the third and the fifth. right? So that could be a play that's going on here. That is very much, you know, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 5. Just when you think the low is in, you pop the high and you get one more. That's usually what happens. So that's kind of what I'm thinking here for the price of Matic, and frankly for a lot of them here. Now, could the low be in already? Yes. Is it likely? Well, that's not for me to decide. I think you still need a little bit more work. Let's see. Let's go to Ethereum. So Ethereum had a pretty big drop. You kind of got a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 4, 5 is what I'm thinking for Ethereum. And when I zoom out on Ethereum, I mean, it could still be a 1, 2, 1, 2, or it could be a Wyckoff. This looks like Wyckoff to me. So if we start rounding out, and then we start doing this, right, or even take that low out and grab that liquidity, this is going to look like a Wyckoff accumulation zone on the 4-hour. So, yeah, let's see what happens there. But I think that's a really good idea for Ethereum and for a lot of them too. I mean, if you just look at ICP, for example, nothing's broken on it. You look at the trend line. The trend is your friend. There's nothing broken on this trend, right? I mean, you're kind of in no man's land. You know, you're kind of right in the middle here, but as far as any damage, I don't think so. I think it's still has a decent structure. So let's look at engine. I mean, you kind of got this three-way move up. You got this drop down, kind of holding the trend line here. I'm curious to see if we get something like that and it turns into a bear flag and then you hit the low again. Not really solid on that one. Let's see, Solana. You got a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You got an impulse, a three-way pullback, right? Look at this. We have a shoulder, we have a head. Look what it's doing. We're right back down in shoulder territory. So if this curls around, look at that. You got your shoulder here. That's your inverse head and shoulders. The measured move would be $203. That would be an all. I think that would be a break. That would almost be an all-time, near an all-time high, or at least this swing high. And I remember seeing another inverse head and shoulders as well somewhere. Oh, I think that's right. I think it was Theta and Theta Fuel. We have a shoulder, we have a head, and look where we are. We're in shoulder territory. There's the bottom of the shoulder, and that's where we are basically right now. So if this curls around, if we start building a base here, kind of going sideways, holding support in here, start curling around, we could break this neckline here, break out, and then go. And that could be a nice inverse head and shoulders breakout. We'll see. Obviously, if it comes down further, it could be Wyckoff. So there's a lot of things that could be going on in here. But all in all, we're building a base. We're building a bottom. So anyways, we'll see how it progresses. I will catch you guys on the next one. Cheers.